Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today I'm going to be reviewing a knife. And the knife I'm going to be reviewing is this, the Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. This is a beautiful blade made by Bark River Knives and Tools in Escanaba, Michigan. And I have to say right off the bat, I'm gonna spoil this for you, but I love this knife. But what is this knife for? What can you actually use it for? I mean, it's called a bushcrafter. It's called the Ultralite Bushcrafter. It's a smaller version of their full-size bushcrafter. And I guess you could use it for, quote, bushcrafting. Not that that's something that I do very often, but yes, it will cut through wood, it will carve wood. You're seeing B-roll now of me batoning through a freshly cut, very hard and very green piece of maple. It goes through that just fine. It bites into wood really easily. I'm assuming it would feather stick. It would do all the kinds of fire starting things you would need it to do. I don't really do much of that. I'm using it more at work. I do construction work and I've had this on my hip every day for the past couple weeks now. So I'm cutting twine, I'm sharpening pencils, I'm cutting through visqueen, basically any kind of cutting task that I would need to do that a knife would be good for. I've been using this knife. As I've been using it at work though, the sheath is getting a little bit battered. I've treated this with some Snow Seal. It's kind of a beeswax based conditioner that you can put on and then heat it up. It'll suck that Snow Seal right into the leather and protect it, but it's getting a little scuffed. I do concrete work, so it's pretty rough on my clothes, on my boots, on anything that I have on my person. And so I'm thinking, maybe I'm not gonna carry this all the time at work, as useful as it is. We shall see. But I've definitely been carrying this just in my daily life as well, and it's great for that. It's good for food prep. It's a really nice thin blade, so it's really slicey, even though it has kind of a convex Scandi grind on it. It's not super thick in profile. I'll show you a close-up later. So it works really well for food prep stuff. But to tell you the truth, most of what I use this knife for is this. Opening packages, and it does great with that. It'll cut in to any Amazon package you may have. But truth be told, you could use a set of keys for that. You could use a rusty nail for that. So you don't really need a knife for this kind of thing. Speaking of knives, that's something for later, maybe for my work knife. But I just use it for anything I might need a knife for. The knife is sharp enough that it'll cut through paper quite easily. It'll shave. It's a really tough, really good steel for edge retention. But I guess for me, it's mostly about the looks and the craftsmanship. This is just a really beautiful knife. Like I said, it is an Ultralite Bushcrafter. The steel is CPM 3V. The handle material here is desert ironwood, and it is gorgeous. It also has black liners in the handle as well. So for me, it's just a really beautiful knife to have on my hip. And I like having a knife, whether it be an old-fashioned slip joint pocket knife or maybe a multi-tool like the Leatherman Skeletool. It's always good and it's always useful to have a blade on you, even if you're not running around through the woods making feather sticks or bow drill fires. It's always useful to have a knife. It's so light and so slim that it's really easy to carry. It just kind of disappears when it's on your hip. You don't feel it there at all. And in places where it's legal to carry a knife on your hip, and I'm pretty sure it is in Washington, the rules are a little bit vague, but as far as I can tell, if you're open carrying a fixed blade, you can have it on your hip. You're not supposed to carry one concealed at all. And the blade is short enough at 3.27 inches that For most places, at least in my state, that have ordinances about blade length, it is under that limit. I think in Seattle, for instance, it's 3.5 inches. In my city, it doesn't seem like there's any ordinance for blade length as long as it's open carry. So this isn't a giant, scary looking knife. It almost just kind of looks like a paring knife or something you would use in the kitchen. But if you look at it more closely, you can see by the blade geometry and the handle, it's just a gorgeous, beautiful, well-made knife. But I did have an issue with the very first one I ordered. This is actually the second Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter in CPM 3V with desert ironwood handle scales that I got. The first one had, I don't know if you could even call it a defect, but there were some issues with it that I just couldn't deal with, and I wanted to send it back and exchange it. You can see right around the spine, hopefully this picture will show you, there were these kind of indentations or just imperfections on the spine, so you didn't have a nice sharp edge to the spine. And I contacted DLT where I got the knife from, and I mentioned that I wasn't happy with it. And they said I could send it back, but they didn't consider it a defect. They said that because these blades are hand finished, they're sort of half factory, half custom made knives, that to them that was within the normal bounds of the quality of the knife or the quality of the finishing of a Bark River knife that you could expect, but that they would check out another one for me and let me know if there were any defects like that. They checked this one out and they sent it to me, and this one is pretty perfect. I can't really find a problem with this blade. The grind is really even on both sides. It had a perfect convexed Scandi edge. There wasn't any sort of secondary bevel or anything that I could notice. You might notice now that there are some little swirly marks on the edge here. That's where I sharpened it with my water stones. I don't really care about that. I guess I could mirror polish that out if I wanted to, but that's fine. The geometry of the blade is really nice. I like how the point is almost kind of in the middle of the blade. The handles are perfect. I have very big hands. They're big. They're very large. I can't remember exactly what the measurement is, but when I was looking at NFL quarterbacks, my hands are in the upper range of NFL quarterback hands, and they have some pretty big hands. So imagine that. You can see how the knife kind of disappears, but I still get a full 4-finger grip on this blade, and it's really ergonomic and really comfortable. The overall length of this knife is 7.29 inches or 18.51 centimeters. The blade length is 3.27 inches or 8.3 centimeters. The blade thickness is only 0.09 inches or 2.28 millimeters, so nice and thin and slicey. The blade steel, as I mentioned, CPM 3V. It's a very tough, very, very nice super steel. I actually like the sheath quite a bit. I wasn't sure I was going to, but it's ambidextrous, which is nice. There is a fire steel loop, which I probably wouldn't need for a knife like this because it's not something that I would take camping with me for the most part. It's a everyday carry kind of knife. I'm not going to be starting fires with a ferro rod as I'm running around doing errands typically, but really nice sheath. You also have options on the back where you can do horizontal carry. You have 2 depths that you could carry it at on your hip. I think it's really well made. These are branded Bark River, so I'm not sure if they're actually making these themselves. I'm assuming they're contracting them out to somebody, but it seems like a really nice quality. I've treated it with some snow seal, and then occasionally I'll clean it up with some ballistol. I put ballistol on my knife as well. It's great for the handle, great for the blade, keeps it from corroding. The handle, I initially put some beeswax on, but now I just, spray some ballistol on there. If it gets dirty, that'll clean it up, and then it also kind of conditions and protects it. As I said, I do use Japanese water stones for sharpening my knives. Typically, that's kind of a recent thing for me, but I tried them out on this blade, even though it probably didn't need it. But for the most part, all I've really had to do is strop this if I've used it rough. And I haven't even had to use the black side. I've got black Bark River compound on one side. I've got white Bark River compound on the other. The black is, I think, about 3,000, and the white is about 12,000. And even through some pretty hard use, all I've really had to do is just strop it. I don't really need to do this right now because it's still very sharp, but just stropping it up maybe for 2.5, 5 minutes or so with the white compound, and it'll get back to shaving sharp. The steel is really tough. It might be hard to sharpen if I actually do get a chip or a defect in the blade, or if I get it really, really dull. But I do have the Japanese sharpening stones, and I don't think it would be too tough, but definitely harder than, 1095 steel or something like that. It is a super steel. I think it's crucible particle metallurgy, the CPM. So it's a powdered steel. Very, very, very tough, wear resistant, and very nice. Probably a little more corrosion resistant than 1095. This isn't a stainless steel though. But now it should shave, now that I've just stropped it that little bit. My fiance has been wondering why I have all these bald patches on my arm lately. Yep, the hair is popping off there. And there's yet another bald patch for my fiance to wonder about. Shaving sharp after a little stropping with the Bark River white compound. All in all, I have been extremely happy with this Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. I love the design, I love the profile of the blade, I love the grind of the blade. The quality of this particular one has been impeccable. Just every little bit of the fit and finish of this knife has been perfect. There aren't any rough spots on the handle. The handle scales fit the tang perfectly. The pins are ground perfectly. I know it's wood, so maybe there could be some shrinkage there, but it's desert ironwood, so it's a really dense, very stable wood, so I'm not too worried about that. And for the size and the weight of this knife, I have big hands, and this fits my hand perfectly for a small knife. It's just really ergonomic, really comfortable. The quality is just amazing. I really like the sheath too, and I wasn't sure if I was going to, but it actually works really well, and the fact that it's ambidextrous is a plus. I'm just really impressed with this Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. It makes me want to get more kind of, I hate the term EDC size blades, but I'll have to use it. More blades that I could actually carry on my hip because, like I said, I don't really have too much use for a full-size outdoor camping kind of knife, but a knife like this, just perfect for general utility, can carry it with you everywhere where it's legal to do so. And I just love it. There's something super satisfying about having an object like this, a well-crafted object made of wood and steel, and I guess leather, hanging on your hip. The Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. It's a beauty. So, thank you so much for watching this review of the Bark River Ultralite Bushcrafter. I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.